Hello, everyone. It's Henry from Cornwall Film Festival here, and thank you for joining us for the next in our live interview in the industry interview series. And today I am joined by Suzie Davies. Before we get started, just let us know where you're watching from in the comments. And of course, if you're enjoying, do give us a like. And if this is the first of our interviews you're watching, where have you been? Make sure to check out the past ones on our CFF Facebook page. If you're watching live, don't forget to submit a question in the comments and we shall try to ask them. So, hi, it's Henry from Cornwall Film Festival, and thanks for joining us again today, whether it be live or if you're catching up via the recording. Tonight, I'm joined by the production designer responsible for creating the look on films including Mr. Turner, Peterloo, The Courier, Swallows and Amazons, The Zookeeper's Wife, and many more. Please give a big like to Suzie Davies. Hello, Suzie. Right.
Hello, Henry.
Hello. I mean, it's like we rehearsed that almost. Oh, right. Stop that sharing. Get us both back on screen. How are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm good. Lockdown happiness today.
Marvelous. Well, I think we're going to get straight in there, Suzie, and say, how did you become a production designer?
So I became a production designer not through the normal route, although I don't think there is a normal route to do what we do in any aspect of the film industry. I actually graduated in agricultural management and technology from Seal Hayne Agriculture College in Devon. And I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I didn't know anything about film at that stage. I thought I would work in farming at one stage. But when I left Seal Hayne, I started to have interviews for sort of like marketing, agricultural marketing jobs, and worked for a guy who lived near where I was living, still at my parents' house, and he was a sculptor and model maker, and he would quite often take on people in the summer holidays, students, to sweep the floor, make cups of tea. So I thought I'd do that whilst I was looking for a grown-up job. And it was like a door had been opened to a world I knew nothing about, but I was very curious about. And it just felt like this might be for me. And brilliantly, he treated me a bit like an apprentice, so taught me how to sculpt. He basically worked in polystyrene and did, 50-foot dragons for Lloyd's Bank commercials and those sort of things. And so I learned a craft through working for him, started working for other model makers. And I've realized after a couple of years that these people called designers and art directors would come to us and say, build me a 50-foot dragon. We'd build the 50-foot dragon. We'd go to Pinewood or wherever, and we'd see it on pre-light being lit and put into position on the rest of the set. And I was just, I want to know why I'm building that. What's the story?
Did you ever get them back? Ever get a 50-foot dragon back?
I don't think so, because they just get thrown away. I mean, it was such a wasteful industry. It's less wasteful now, but it would just get lost in some skip somewhere. So then I started assisting for designers and art directors, and worked my way up through the ranks, so to speak. But as I say, there's no direct route to do what we do. I've worked with people who literally go to film school and have designed, have graduated in production design, and other people who've never been to film school. I think there's room for every aspect, really.
That's great. That means it's one of those departments that's open to everybody from loads of different backgrounds. It makes it quite nice and accessible.
Yeah, and I try and build a crew that has a mixture as well. Not, I don't want everyone from a film school. It's more about attitude and enthusiasm. Really goes a long way in this industry.
No, that makes sense. But you say about your crew and about the department, but for those who are watching who don't know, and even those who do, what exactly is a production designer? What do you do other than play around with 50-foot dragons?
Yeah, basically we try to bring the script to life. So one of the first things I'll do is I'll get sent a script that I'll try and put a visual pitch together for. So it's bringing those words to life. So I will build the sets or find the locations along with the location manager. We'll work out the special effects. Your finger is in a bit of everything, really. Special effects, stunts, horses. I'll help choose the cars, for the characters, and just the way that our characters will live in the film. And some films require that more than others. Some you're left to your own devices to recreate that world. Other times directors are very specific on what they want, and quite often the script obviously is the sort of the anchor point for everything. You know, that's where we work from. So the script has to stay high in the list of priorities of creating the world, basically.
And then as production designer, you're overall responsible for that whole thing. Then it's down to you. And then I guess, how big is your team?
Team varies. You know, I've done films where there's just been me and 2 others. And then I've done films when there's probably been 100 of us. Yeah, when you talk about construction teams and model makers, fabricators, even people who are sanding fabric on chairs and things like that. So there's a raft of different departments within the art department that I sort of cover. And again, some are brilliant. You know, in a way, the smaller films are quite good fun because you're more involved. I found the bigger the film I've done, the less hands-on I get to be. It's a lot of people management. You do main design happens in prep of the film, and then when you're actually filming, it's just keeping the factory going, sort of thing. It's a quite a different vibe on a big film, and the little ones are great because you can sort of get stuck in and really feel part of it. You know, painting things at the last minute or changing things it's quite good fun.
Has anyone had that last minute thing where they suddenly go, no, that's the wrong color, you must change it at once?
Yeah, that does happen. As much as you'd like to think you've prepped it so that can't happen, sometimes it does. And I've quite often say to my team that we quite enjoy a curveball. So those last minute requests, which quite often come up because we're on a location and it's suddenly raining and the director wants to do something else and you want to try and fix that. We're often troubleshooters, and as an industry, we want to try and achieve what we've set out to do. So I think as long as you're prepped enough, it means you can catch the odd curveball, which quite often becomes the genius shot or the thing that everyone remembers. And it's lovely being open to that opportunity.
That sounds great. Great that you've got the ability or way to do it, really.
Yeah.
So everyone watching, if you have worked in production before, or if you worked in the art department, do let us know. And don't forget to put your questions in the comments, because we're going to talk about some of Suzie's projects that she's worked on. Maybe we'll find out what some of those curveballs are as they come up. But let's start with a project called Mr. Turner, which was, of course, directed by festival patron Mike Lee. It's a period piece, but Suzie, kind of over to you. What did you have to do to help bring that world to life?
So working with Mike is quite different than other directors, in that his story evolves through his process of rehearsals. And as a production designer, I come on sort of whilst he's doing that. So as he's developing his story, our paths will cross at lunch or whatever, and he'll let me know the sort of direction he's going, and I might go off with the location manager to find the Royal Academy, for instance. Mike knew he wanted to have a scene at the summer exhibition of the Royal Academy, so whilst he was rehearsing that and developing the characters with the actors, the location manager Henry Woolley and I started going off around the country to try and find somewhere we could film the Royal Academy. We looked at building it, but we were on quite a tight budget, and something of that scale sort of didn't ring out for us. So we were keen to try and find a location that we could build within. And we came across a massive old country estate in Yorkshire called Wentworth Woodhouse, which I think has now had quite a bit of filming there. We managed to get it, I think it was just about to be sold or just had been sold. So we went there, basically had everything that we needed to assist us in creating the Royal Academy. It had a lovely staircase, a massive ballroom with an amazing floor, and then rooms off. And this enabled me to build a temporary structure within the ballroom with the amazing floor, but connect it to the staircase, and we made some other corridors and rooms off so that it feels massive. And then also at that stage, once we'd found that, and Mike had been up to see it, what we thought we were going to do, I do some scribbles of how I think it'll look, and then they get developed into a CAD drawing or construction drawings. And then we worked out how to make the paintings, and we realized there's going to be like 350 paintings to make. How could we do
a lot of paintings?
Yeah, a lot of paintings. Luckily, we got the rights for free, because can be quite expensive to get the clearance rights for famous works of art. So we got those, but just gave us the high res image. So we had to go through a process of working out how to print those to a good enough standard so they look like real paintings, and then put them in frames, lightweight, that we could move about. So it went through quite a long process, but we honed it down to printing. Most of them are printed on foam board and then painted over the top with thick varnish.
Destroying the illusion for everybody watching those scenes now. It sounds amazing though.
And then plastic frames that we painted up. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it makes sense. If you got to work, lightweight to move around, if you need volume, you can't have somebody there just painting masterful reproductions of these great artworks.
Yeah, and because of the time restriction, I think I worked out that we would have to do 4 paintings a day to get them ready. And you just can't paint that quick, and you're never going to paint as well as the real people. So the high res images were definitely the way to go.
Did you ever have to have what we might call a hero painting, actually painted? So for those who don't know, a hero painting is like a key prop that you might see close up.
Yeah, I think we had about 20 hero paintings where we see Mr. Turner, played by Timothy Spall, interacting with the painting. So we had a fine artist called Charlie Cobb, who, again, Mike was very clear in the paintings he wanted, and he gave us good notice in that. So we were able to have paintings at various stages, between 1 hardly started and 10 finished. And we'd do a 3, a 5, and a 7 of various paintings. And then they were done in oil. They were then dried. And then when Turner is painting on them, it's a water-based paint that we can wipe off, so we can do another take without ruining the painting. So that's
a good trick, I think, for anyone who's looking to make a film and has a painting in it. That idea of repetition is very important.
Yeah, repetition. You have to get repeats ready. For any interaction, you need backups. You need repeats, because quite often, whilst we were drying one, we had to put another dry one in and dry one offset and get clean another one. So we're constantly turning around, because the last thing you can do is hold up filming because of a prop or something. That sort of, no one wants to be the person that's holding up the filming.
I don't think saying the painting's not dry is going to hold up well, is it really?
No, exactly.
But you've also worked on another Mike's films, Peterloo, which we did a screening of at the film festival a few years ago, along with a Q&A with Mike, which was great. Nice. Just when it came out. But that's, again, still a period piece, but a very different style, really. You're going to create a much bigger world, I imagine, especially the riot scenes that are in that.
Yeah, it was different that, because rather than really getting into the detail of one particular character, we were doing the character of different areas of society. So we had to show the difference between, the government and how they lived, and the royalty, as opposed to the workers of the mills and the owners of the mills, the judges. So it was broad brushstrokes of different elements of society that we had to try and pack a lot of detail into those individual areas where they lived, the courtrooms, the mills, all those sort of things. So it was different in that it was broader. There was less character detail, more society detail, which was quite interesting to do.
Did you have to cover up any annoying post boxes or anything in that one? Or any kind of modern pieces on set that were just, that can't be there?
Yeah, all the time. I think when we were in, we made Manchester up of various different cities around the country. So we used Lincoln for a good chunk of it. And there's a street in Lincoln with lovely old houses and a cobble street. But there were millions of modern things there that we just went and put oldie worldy posters on, or different signs. There's a certain amount that post-production can do and computer generated images, but it's always better to try and do it in camera for real. So we try and do as much as we can, and then CGI or post-production quite often help us sort of from from head height or roof height upwards.
Get rid of those aeroplanes flying overhead.
Yeah, and satellite dishes and stuff like that. Yeah.
I imagine they're quite hard for you to dress out, really, when they're above head height. It must be quite a difficult
Well,
one.
that's it. So you can it's getting cheaper to be able to let that be a post-production issue, just because of the time and the effort, and quite often you're on people's properties, and the difficulty to get permissions to get into all those houses can be quite time consuming and expensive. And now it's almost cheaper to do in CG. Yeah.
There's a lot of logistics that you have there. Can you talk us through like your average day? Are you one of these departments that has to be there at 4 a.m. and is there till midnight to get everything sorted?
Yeah, the beauty is I don't really have an average day, and that's what I love about what I do. But during shooting, I guess I nearly always are on set at the beginning of the day to meet the director, especially if they're going into a new set or a new location. So I'll meet them, we'll walk the course, and then they'll carry on for the day. And I leave a core nucleus of my team with the shooting crew. So that'd be a standby art director, some prop men, a chippy and a painter, and they'll be with the shooting crew. I'll then go off and start dressing and prepping the next day's location. And there'll be another team there, which is quite often my set decorator, Charlotte, the buyer, a dressing team, prop master, and maybe a model maker or maybe construction and painters are there. So we're constantly 2 or 3 days ahead than the shooting crew, and I sort of pop back between depending on what they're up to. So that's sort of my usual day. And yes, we do some crazy hours. I guess sometimes we have to dress things overnight. I did a film in Prague last year or 2 years ago where we could only dress at night. So we got in at 12 o'clock at night and dressed it for the shooting crew to turn up at 8 o'clock in the morning. And that I must admit can be a bit tough, in the deepest, darkest winter to be dressing sets overnight, but sometimes needs must.
No, definitely. And I'm guessing it must be, you want that schedule to stick.
Yes.
You don't want it to suddenly change.
Yeah, that's another thing I have. That I have a triangle that you'll never have enough money, the script will always be late, and the schedule will always change. And that's a given. And that therefore we shouldn't roll our eyes, because that's just how it works. And we work within those parameters. As much as we'd like all that fixed, it's never going to happen. So as long as we accept that from day one, then it's not a shock when the script still hasn't been finished, or when the schedule changes for the 15th time. You don't have to roll your eyes. It's just part of our job, and we'll deal with it, sort of thing. Yeah.
Just got to deal with it. If it happens, you've got to make it happen.
Yeah.
On to then something a bit different. A remake that you were part of.
Oh.
An adaptation at Swallows and Amazons.
Oh yeah.
So it must be quite different for, again, a different project that's already been done once.
Yeah.
It's an adaptation of a book again.
Mm.
How is that? Do you have to take a different approach to that in any way, or
again, the approach is sort of led by the script and the director. So I obviously I'd worked with Philippa Lothorpe before, and she had got, I think it was Andrea Gibb who wrote the screenplay, and it was just such a fantastic adaptation. And that, along with Philippa, it felt like quite whimsical storytelling, with aspects of sort of real terror and trauma mixed amongst fun and frolics and that sort of idyllic childhood memories that I think lots of people have regarding that particular film. So it was led by Philippa's ideas, and I think because we'd worked together, we had a shorthand already to take it into a particular direction. And just being up in the Lake District, I was born up there, so it was lovely to go back to some of my haunts. I mean, I hadn't been back since I was about 10 or 11, but it was great, and I thoroughly enjoyed that process. Yeah.
I do have to ask though, obviously there's boats in it. Do you get to pick the boats?
Yeah, we did actually. And one of the producers was a big boat fan. I think he had some of his own, so he'd already sort of started the ball rolling. But we bought a couple of boats on eBay, And then we had a local guy in the Lake District take them to the correct period, the sort of 1930s period boat. So all the correct ropes and sail material and stuff like that. And then I think we hired the boat that's Captain, I've forgotten his name, Rafe Spall's character.
I don't know if anyone's watching, remember the name.
Yeah.
Do let us know.
We found that boat, I think, in somewhere on the south coast and had it taken up there. And there was only one place that it could get into Lake Coniston and all of those sort of things. And then we built the interior for that because there's quite a bit of action and it's difficult to get a camera team and all the action into a little boat on Lake Coniston. So that was, the interior was actually a studio build.
It's all the magic of cinema. But then something completely different for you. Those are like three sort of, I guess, period pieces.
Yeah.
But this is for television. Mad Dogs 3.
Yeah.
And now it's not as I guess, well, it's quite action based, I suppose, in some ways. But tell us a bit about what Mad Dogs 3 is and what you have to do on that one.
Mad Dogs 3 is basically the third series of a television production called Mad Dogs, which is basically about 4 guys who go on a stag weekend in Spain, and it all goes horribly wrong in the first series. And in the second series, they're still on the run. I don't want to spoil it for anyone because it's
we don't want to put any spoilers out there. Everyone go watch it if you want to see it.
Watch it because it's bonkers and crazy. And then in my series, we find them in the equivalent of Guantanamo Bay prison and how they escape from that. So we actually filmed a lot of that in South Africa, which is great anyway. To work abroad is much fun. And the director on that is this fantastic guy called Adrian Shergold, who is so visual, which enabled us to make Mad Dogs so mad. I mean, it is crazy. There's very odd situations. It reminds me a little bit of Donnie Darko crossed with the Joker, crossed with a bit of the white, all sorts of different ideas in there. But the visual aspect was really great to do something contemporary that we could go on a crazy angle. Yeah. And just working abroad, particularly in South Africa, the ambition you can sort of achieve, it's just your money goes a little bit further. There's great locations, all those sort of things really added to the vibe of that production.
Is it harder to find what you need though in other countries, not just South Africa but around the world?
No, not really. I think what's fun is working abroad is that you go with an open mind. In the UK, I feel like I know a lot of what's available, although a good location manager will always show me something new. When you go abroad, it's you're finding out through new eyes all these different aspects of a country. So I filmed in Prague, as I say, a couple of years ago. I was in Hungary at the beginning of the year, and it's just lovely seeing the different architecture. I think you can look at things with much more clearness because you haven't got like a sort of like backstory already prepped in your head for the UK, which can be beneficial. But I think just the openness and the idea of seeing new locations in foreign countries is exciting.
No, it does sound. I think a lot of people I know and a lot of people watching probably want to go film abroad or work abroad at some point. So it's really nice to know what advantages there can be. Okay, so let's move on then from the productions, because we know you've done lots of them, and I'm sure there's lots of different stories you could share or shouldn't share about those. Probably more possible. But for those who are thinking or looking to become part of the art department, want to make a switch from maybe another department or a way in, any advice you would give them?
Persevere. If you really want to do it, persevere. Just be sending that CV out all the time to as many people as regularly as you can without pissing people off, and try and you don't necessarily have to go to film school to get into the art department, like I said before, but having some technical expertise up your sleeve, you can learn at home. Even like graphics is a great way into the art department, and learning SketchUp or I use Procreate for a lot of my drawing, or any of the graphic packages getting to grips with that is a great way, because we now do graphics in-house in the art department, and that's a very useful skill to have. Technical drawing, again, using SketchUp. A lot of people think you should draw with a pen and a ruler, and I think that's lovely when you have time, and some people are massively quick drawing like that, but on a lot of the jobs I do, I like using SketchUp and CAD, just because we can quickly get something up and running in 3 dimensions. I can walk through it on an iPad, in the back of a car, or on the location. I can sort of draw it there and then, and with the director to say, this is what we're going to do, and then I'll pass it off to construction. So just being au fait with SketchUp and any CAD programs would be very useful. Again, these are the sort of things you can learn on the job as well. And just having that sort of desire to research stuff is always useful, just to go that extra mile, rather than just to sit on Google, go and speak to people about mills in the 18th century or printing presses, or those sort of things. It's just having a little bit of, well, not a little bit, a lot of enthusiasm and a keenness for the visual art of filmmaking. Make a film. People can make films on iPhones now. That would go a long way. I prefer to see someone in an interview's made a film perhaps on an iPhone, even if it's 30 seconds long, than look at some brilliant drawing of a bit of molding from the 1800s, which they're all great, but the fact that you've made a film would probably be more inspirational to me. Give me more of an idea of the sort of person you might be.
No, definitely. It sounds like a good idea. I think people get out there and create work is a really great thing. But a lot of people might be watching, when you're doing a film, you obviously can't use real products a lot of the time, or they don't exist. So you have to redesign everything. So there's a lot of work for the graphics department to be created.
Yeah.
So I think it's really nice for people to be remembered that everything they see on screen might have to be remade or rebranded.
Well, especially for example, Peterloo, all those banners were handmade. And Jane Brodie was our graphics designer on that, and she did an awesome job researching every possible font, why they would have painted it like that, what would they have used, would they have stolen that fabric, where would they got the paint from, who were they, all those sort of things. What wood would you use to hold the banner in? How big should it be? Should it be a one-person banner or a single banner? And that body of work is just fantastic, and that's all down to Jane and her process of research and then doing it, hand painting it herself. We all had different goes on it, because you don't want it to look like one person's done it. It needs to be a complete plethora of people have had a go at those. Yeah.
No, that sounds like great fun as well. You're all just in the same room making massive banners.
Yeah, we did. We had a massive banner room, and they're all laid out on the floor. Yeah.
That's great. I think that sounds quite fun, actually. Right, Suzie, we're moving on now to the questions. So if anyone else has got any questions, do please put them in the comments. I've got a few already. So if you're ready.
Come on, hit me.
Come on. It's quite a nice one to start with, actually. What excites you most about working on a project?
Collaboration with other creative people. That's just is one of the most fun things to do, just to creatively plan how you're going to do something, how are we going to make this work, and come up with a plan, and just the subject matter and the story, and then the desire, whoever the director is. My relationship with the director is quite important, and at the beginning of most projects, I have this beautiful time when it's just me and the director and the location manager looking for locations and whatever, and that lasts for about a month maybe. And then the DOP comes on board, and then all the other people come on board, and I sort of get dumped. But that initial sort of month is so great, because at that stage, all bets are off. We are thinking big about whatever the story is we're telling. We're not at that point too worried about budget and time, because we shouldn't be. We should be allowed to run at that stage. And I should be able to respond to whatever the script or the director requires without going, oh, well, that sounds lovely, but I can't afford to do it. At that stage, you don't say that. At that stage, you're going, yeah, brilliant, okay. And trying to work out with your creative collaboration with all your team, how you might be able to get from A to B. And that's perhaps one of the most fun things and things I look for in jobs, basically, that I can get that sort of vibe.
That sounds good. I do have visions now of you just running around there with a paintbrush and a tape measure going,
You
can
got
we
it.
do this? Let's do this. Almost some swatches and going,
Yeah.
how does that work?
Yeah. Yeah.
You kind of answered my next question actually as well, linked to that. It's like, how much time do you get? I imagine that depends upon the scale of the project.
Yeah, it absolutely varies. On average, I get probably about 3 to 4 months prep for a 2 to 3 month shoot. Where it differs is with Mike Lee. I usually get a longer prep just because of his process and how that develops. And sometimes you get a lot less than that. I've worked on projects where they're, funny, it's like, where were you? We needed you yesterday, sort of thing. So, and you have no time and you have to literally turn it around in a day. Commercials are often like that. But on the whole, it's about, 8 to 12 weeks, well, 8 to 16 weeks. Yeah.
I think some departments will be very envious of you there with that amount of time.
Yeah. But like I say, we'll never have enough time either. So that should be added to the triangle.
Certainly. Ooh, which genre is your favorite / most challenging to work in?
So, I can answer this in 2 ways, really.
Go for it.
I love the 18th century because it just is so rich, and working with Charlotte, my set deck, who is a fan of that period as well. And we've been very lucky to work on some projects that we've been allowed to really delve into. I worked on a film last year that will be out next year called Louis Wain, which it was one of the most fantastic experiences I've ever had making a movie, because it was 18th century, but sort of on acid. So it's slightly gone crazy. So we really played with that architecture. But a period that I've always wanted to work on, and I've nearly done it, but then the film never got off the ground. It might still happen, is sci-fi. And I designed a spaceship, I think it was about 18 months ago, and the whole living pods and all of those. And that's really interesting because that is proper design, everything, even the cup you drink from. How do you eat? How do you breathe? How do you sleep? Is there a bed? How does the spaceship move? What does the spaceship look like? Where's it going? How long's it been traveling? All those sort of things. And that was absolutely fantastic to be involved in working all of those things out. And it's very sad it never got off the ground yet.
Yeah, well, I mean, if anyone's watching has got a big sci-fi movie they want someone to come and design for them, you never know. Stranger things have happened. We had someone a few weeks ago, I can't remember who it was, who's always wanted to work on a sci-fi project as well. So we had to try and remember who that is and put you all together, and we gradually build up a project.
Yeah.
Well, they are saying at the moment as well, with everything that's going on in the world, we should be seeing more underwater and more space set films.
I heard that. Yeah.
We shall see what happens with that. Is there a director, I suppose, in the same vein, is there a director you particularly would like to work with?
Oh,
who you haven't already?
Yeah. Gosh, there are lots of directors I'd like to work with. I'd like to work with Wes Anderson. I think he's quite interesting. Todd Haynes. I've very nearly worked with Kelly Reichardt, so I'd love that to sort of come to fruition. We spent a couple of months recceing Romania for a job that again has never happened. I think she'd be amazing to work with. Todd Haynes. Oh, the list could go on.
These put you on the spot, these questions. That's the point of them. You go, you commit to an answer.
Yeah.
Do you have any, on that sort of director vein, do you have any films that have influenced your designs?
Lots of films, but lots of art as well. When I first start looking into a project, I look for photographers and artists. So obviously 18th century, we're full of Turners and Constables. But for instance, the Courier, which I did, which is out in August, I believe, which is about Grenville Wynne, who was a courier spy in the 60s. I looked at William Eggleston paintings and not paintings, photographs, and Parkinson photographs, a sort of stylish aspect of still images, and I've forgotten the name of that American photographer. Sol Leiter was another reference that I use. So it's often photographers that I use as my reference. Film-wise, I find all films fascinating and love watching them. Sometimes I can't watch them because I'm looking at the design too much. But yeah, obviously, a lot of my peers, I'm in awe of their work. Nathan Crowley being one of them. His work on Christopher Nolan films, I think, is immense. And that would, yeah. That's another director I'd like to work with, actually, Chris Nolan. Yeah.
It's out there now, so you never know. Maybe one day one of his people watches the video and it's
maybe Nathan will be busy. Yeah, he'll be busy one day.
It happens. What is the craziest brief you've ever been given?
Oh my God, the craziest brief. There must be. There is one out there. I mean, a lot of Mike's briefs, a lot of just recreating the Royal Academy was pretty crazy to try and do that. Gosh, that's really stumped me. And there must be something. I'm sure there are members of my team who will go.
Should we come back to that one and see if we'll come back to that one as a kind of. You can message one of them now, going, "What was the craziest thing we did?"
Yeah, what was the craziest thing?
There must be something that's out there. We covered it a bit earlier, but someone's just asking again for a refresher. The route that you took to become a production designer. I mean, once you were in the industry, did you go up quite quickly, or did you?
No, I assisted a designer on light entertainment for a bit, and worked in children's TV, and that was all great fun. And then I got a chance to work on a soap opera as a standby art director. I did a section on EastEnders and things like that. And then I broke across into drama. I think I designed a little bit on EastEnders, and then to get into drama, I sort of went across it and became a standby art director. And I thought standby art directing would be me. I absolutely loved it. It was one of the best experiences I've had, and I did that for about 7 or 8 years. And I think everyone who works in the art department should have a go at being a standby art director, because it sort of focuses why we do what we do and how you get it on the set, on the day, when they're turning the camera, when the film is running and when they're filming it. It's so important to know what's important when things work, when colors work, when composition, how composition and working with the DOP is so important. So yeah, I spent, as I say, 5 or 6 years as a standby art director, and then got some opportunities to design and thought, actually, I really like designing as well. And then off I went. And again, now I still love going back to when they are shooting, I will hang around for a little bit just to get my eye in and check everything's all right. And if the standby art director for it, or if we need a second unit, quite often I'll jump on and do standby for the second unit if I've got time.
There you go. So it's all different ways to do it. Now, someone's just commented, I don't know if you know them, about, I guess, the most crazy projects, turning a car park into a zoo in 6 weeks.
Yeah, someone else just sent me that. Said, talk about the zoo.
I think you should talk about the zoo then.
Yeah. So on Zookeeper's Wife, which we filmed in Prague, we had to recreate Warsaw Zoo in Prague. This is back in 2015. And it was a case of how on earth do we do that? We needed a fully functioning zoo. The director was very keen to use real animals where possible, so not to CGI everything, although obviously we had to do a bit of that because lions and tigers. And I looked everywhere. I spent 2 or 3 months in Prague looking for a location, and ended up finding a disused car park in the middle of Prague that we sort of took over and created a zoo with animals. We actually, for 3 days, we had lions, tigers, elephants, zebras, monkeys, parrots, camels. The list goes on. Wolves.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was really good fun, because we created a 360 zoo and all the cages. And this was, zoos were massive back in the 1930s. They were where everyone would go and promenade, and they were all very stylish. So we were able to really push that design aspect of it. And one of the reasons we built it was so that we could blow it up, because the majority of the film is post the German invasion of Warsaw, and they blew up the zoo basically. So it was only in its pristine condition for 2 days, and then we blew it up and spent the rest of the shoot in a bombed out zoo.
All that work just to blow it up.
But that's the thing, we did all the work really to blow it up. So if anything, we should have, we designed it in its blown up state and then made it good, and then just took those bits off. If you see what I mean?
It sounds quite. I think that was Charlotte who put that out there on Facebook. Yeah. So it sounds like a great project to work in. We've got someone looking for some advice now, and so hopefully you can help them. So they have a scene that is shot in the late 1940s, early 50s in Hackney Baths. Would you build a set or fly abroad to find a similar location?
Well, I wouldn't. I'd say you might be able to find some baths in the UK. I don't think you'd need to go abroad to find that location. Again, I had to, on this film Louis Wain, we had to film in some prehistoric, not prehistoric, what am I talking about? 18th century spa baths, and we found some. We found quite a few dotted around London. So I would say you could probably find something that you could film in. Would I build it? Building is always good because you control it, and you can film at a relatively good time of the day. You know, you don't have to go at weekends or film at nights. You control the lighting and all those sort of things. So everything has its pros and cons, and I guess it depends if you've got the money and the time as to what you end up doing. But I would say you could find 1940s baths in the UK easily.
There's a lot out there when you start looking sometimes, isn't there? There's just lots of things tucked away.
Yeah, and adapting locations is often the fun thing to do. So you find something that's almost there, and then you put a bit of flattage in to alter it, to take it to whatever the script requires. Yeah.
It's the magic. So we're coming towards the end now, but I do have a couple more questions, if that's okay for you. When you're, I guess, pitching your projects or pitching a design to a director or producers, what do you put together at the moment? Do you put together just like a mood board, or do you go all digital and do a digital walkthrough? What do you do?
Yeah, so it sort of depends on who you're seeing. Whenever I go for an interview, I put a keynote speech together, basically. So a little digital mood board that I can share with whoever I'm meeting. And sometimes I'll just hand them my iPad and let them flick through, or sometimes I'll send it. I nearly always print a copy as well, because there's something about seeing images all next to each other is very important. I think when you look at things on a computer, not seeing everything in one frame, you lose a bit of what you're trying to say. So yes, it's a digital mood board with one hard copy, basically, and like I say, at that stage, it will be of references that have resonated with me on reading the script. And now I've been doing what I've done for quite a while. I know that my first thoughts are usually the ones I come back to. So when I read a script, the first time I read it, I write all my notes down there, and then I don't read a script and then read it again, read it again, read again. The first time I read is when I break it down to what works for me visually. And that's when I'll bring images of Martin Parr or Sol Leiter or artwork from French impressionists or whatever the job requires, and I'll sort of mix them all up, and I'll probably put together maybe, I don't know, a dozen pages of images. Yeah.
So yeah, people could put as much work in as they think the project might need at that stage, or things are going to change. So it's about knowing what the project is, isn't it?
That's it. And also quite often you have to be aware when you go into those sort of meetings, whether you've got a production team who've already done a lot of visual work on it, so that you could come in with something completely different. So you have to sort of balance with trying to find out how much they've already done before, or is it all up? Are they going to just hand it over to you to bring these visuals, or has someone else already done a bit of work? And that's often happens. So you sort of have to be careful how you jump in with that and keep an open mind.
That makes sense. Right, we've got time for one more question from our audience. Can you tell us an embarrassing story from your career? People want to know all the gossip. No?
Well, okay, I can tell you this one. It's a bit embarrassing. It's more slightly funny. So I was a standby art director on a Miss Marple episode. I can't remember which one it's called, but it was when an old lady put all the clues to how someone was killed in a painting. So we had this sort of dodgy oil paint that our character had been putting all the clues in, things like a noose hanging from a tree, a shadowy figure in a house, white roses round the garden fence, all those sort of things. And for a joke, because part of my job was to put those images on, and then we'd film them. So we'd done all the real ones, and then I decided, because I thought it was funny at the time, I put a red herring jumping out of the pond and a banana skin on the path going up to the house, and we filmed it. But we were on a second unit doing that, and then you just carried on. And I thought that'd be funny when they see it in the edit. Unfortunately, it got all the way through to the actual film. So if you've got eagle eyes, you might see a banana skin and a red herring painted onto a bit of artwork in a Miss Marple.
All right. Does everyone can do that? Everyone go watch every Miss Marple and see what what can be there. Well, Suzie, that's coming towards the end now, but I have one final question for you.
Okay.
It's kind of, what's the first thing you're going to do after the lockdown is fully lifted?
I'm going to have a meal with my set decorator, Charlotte, and we're going to drink champagne and eat this amazing, we've had it before, we often have this meal. It's anchovies and shallots on sourdough with a glass of champagne at this lovely restaurant in London called Terroir. And that's what we've got on our list.
Yeah, that sounds like a very good plan indeed. Well, Suzie, thank you so much for your time today. It's been wonderful talking to you. Thank you for answering all the questions. Thank you, everybody, for watching and all your questions as well. Just a reminder, we actually have 2 interviews this week. So we have another one tomorrow at 6 p.m. with Tom Axon, who's a marine coordinator and production stills photographer. So he's worked on shows such as Game of Thrones, Outlander, and the Cornish hit Bait. So do join us at 6 p.m. for that. But before we disappear completely, I shall put this back up so you know we're all off. Charlotte says she can't wait to see you there. So once again, thank you so much, Suzie. It's been a pleasure. Thank you all for watching and take care. We'll see you all soon. So Suzie, I'm just going to turn you off for a moment.